When Ultimate was announced, you had to put on waiting gear to navigate the tidal wave of impassioned decrees that person on Twitter or Facebook would be the pioneer of their new character's meta and blaze the trail. But Ultimate is close enough now, 5 weeks to be exact, that we should really start thinking about how exactly we're going to make good on those promises. This prospect is making a lot of us nervous because, indeed, for many of us, understanding our character in Smash 4 took ages, and it's an intimidating task to wonder if we'll be able to pull that off again, and if so, how long will it take us, and will we be able to keep up quickly enough to truly be the pioneers of our characters we also fervently insist that we'll be. Most beginnings and new character journeys look like hours spent labbing elaborate tech, contriving massive combos, and so on. But while these are good and of course necessary going forward, they're ultimately ornaments that you hang on the Christmas tree of what should already be a strong foundation. That is, how your character fundamentally operates. Combos and tech are mostly obvious, but the most important part of a character, their neutral, is usually developed on a more intuitive level, and that's exactly why so many people struggle with comprehending neutral. A good neutral game isn't a static, unmoving, easy to understand thing, unlike tech and character trivia such as ledge hang heights or things like that, but a living thing that's sensitive to different characters and players. So, what is neutral? Neutral is, as I see it, the embodiment of the philosophy that when a door closes, a window opens. As I define it, neutral is the total set of sequences of complementary actions such that one action forces the opponent to act in one way, and a following, complementary action seizes that way of acting. Together, these sequences of moves form what I call complementary sequences because the moves complement each other. In other words, good neutral depends on your ability to establish expectations and use those expectations to create potential openings, and this depends largely on two attributes. The first of which is masterful understanding of how people must react to your tools if they don't want to get hit. That is, giving someone a reason to act a certain way. Second of which, a masterful understanding of the corresponding tools your character has that can act upon or subvert the reaction in question. Thus, the first questions that will be instrumental in establishing a baseline with your character going into Ultimate and developing your neutral are the following. 1. What kinds of reactions does Action X get? And it doesn't even have to be an attack move, strictly speaking. It could be something like Sonic forcing someone to shield with his scary movement. The trick here is just deciding if the thing in question is useful, and some things will be more useful against certain characters and players than others. Second, what can I do to use that reaction to my advantage? These two questions are particularly important for mid-level players to pose to themselves, because a linear playstyle describes nearly 100% of plateaus between mid and high levels of play. Through the lens of the questions posed, a linear playstyle can be defined simply as one that isn't sensitive to or doesn't change based on the actions of the opponent. Linear playstyles that stick to mid-level players like a bad smell are explained by the fact that many mid-level players grope in the dark to discover at least semi-successful options, but they don't quite understand how what they do influences their opponent's behavior, and as such can't create openings so much as pray that openings present themselves. This can all be visualized and described by a simple decision tree. Let's say I throw out a back air neutral in full knowledge that one of three things must happen. My opponent either must shield, must fade back and stay out of range, or they must challenge my back air to snuff my incoming attack. And of course, there are more nuanced possibilities, but let's keep it simple for now. In this first clip, I hit Luigi's shield, and suspecting very highly that he'd try to grab me, chose an option that cashed in on the reaction sought by my earlier back air. In this case, a grab. In this next one, I saw that Marth faded back, unwilling to risk getting hit, which I can't blame him for, which let me push forward and presumably repeat the process until I twisted his arm into letting me land a hit. But in this case, it was actually me that got hit because the Marth wisely perfect shielded my nair, and I'm the one that got hit, so the egg is on my face, but hopefully you get the idea. In this last one, Mario caught on to my full hop back air gambit and challenged it with an up smash. I leveraged this by choosing an option in our next interaction that had a superior angle to the up smash that I was anticipating, in this case, Ganon's forward air. So, just so I can say I didn't talk the talk, I'll ask myself my own two questions. What does back air force people to do if they don't want to get hit? With nuanced exceptions, like I said, they must fade back, shield, or challenge me. Now, what can I do to use those reactions to my advantage? In Marth's case, there's not a whole lot I can do directly if he starts to fade back, but I can build upon that small but not quite ripe opening by maybe pushing him to the corner. At this point, you may be asking if this is all just sophisticated baiting, and the answer to that actually is sort of. The critical distinction, though, between baiting and the sequences here that I argue constitute neutral is that baits are based on trickery and tricking your opponent into committing to unnecessary options. Good neutral, on the other hand, is taking advantage neither of ignorance nor mistakes necessarily, but taking advantage of things the opponent is obligated to do in response to your actions, and attacking the flaws, small though they may be, inherent in those necessary movements. For instance, if a big Ganon-shaped meteor is coming in hot, you have to respond, and each response, and some far, far more than others, has some kind of implicit drawback and opens up some other avenue, bringing us full circle to the philosophy that when a door closes, a window opens, even if it's a tiny little window like in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. You're a well-fed German boy. So in this sense, I think it's more appropriate to call baits fools neutral rather than call neutral sophisticated baits. Again, recapping, what kinds of reactions does Action X force out of someone? If I do something, what must my opponent do to not get hit? Then, what can I do to use how my opponent reacted to land a hit? As you're starting out in Ultimate, not all of this knowledge will come to you at once. Start simple. The complexity and maturity will come as long as you keep asking these questions. Developing this baseline takes time, experience, and attention. But what's important is to stay productive and keep a steady pace of progress, and these two big questions are a good point of reference in developing your understanding of what leverage your character has to hit an opponent that really does not want to get hit, which is truly the essence of neutral and the essence of the very character themselves. Anyway, the sound of my voice is starting to upset the local wildlife, so it's looking like it's about that time again to put this one to a close. As I mentioned recently on Twitter and other places, in addition to SmashConceptions, I'll also be doing Q&A videos in the near future where I pick a few questions from subscribers or elsewhere and briefly answer the chosen set of questions with a video. That being said, I welcome all questions and comments. So, thank you guys for taking the time to hear me and my thoughts as always, and I do sincerely hope that they were helpful in some way. I always appreciate the time my viewers take to hear me, so here's to hoping it wasn't time wasted. If you're new to the channel, I encourage you to subscribe since I put out new content fairly frequently and am even more encouraged to do so when I know the content is reaching new ears.